Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Snap No Tap podcast. Without Joe here, we fall apart. So we don't have our normal audio or musical introduction or outro, but so be it. Joe is supposed to be returning from his wonderful vacation tomorrow, so he should be here next week. And so, of course, we have the legendary Brian Deneve. Nico is working today. But we have a very, 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 very special guest, another one of the legends of the original crew. He's famous, for several things, but we can't talk about some of the pornographic stuff. But we could talk about the Lucky 13, and this guy is a star, Mr. Fit, Martin Witkowski. Welcome, Martin. Yakshimash.
Hello, Yakshimash, Tony.
Yeah, Dobsha. What's up, buddy? Haven't
Uh,
seen you in a long time.
right. Yeah, we haven't talked in a while. I think probably since one of your seminars up in Libertyville.
Yeah.
But I'm still around, still being busy with the kids and family. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, well, you look great. I mean, you don't change. It's just one of those things with you. You've always been, on the lean side and fit, and boy, it's great. Great to see you, man. I can't wait to see you guys again in person. We were all trying to hook up this past Thursday with Bruce, but we just couldn't make arrangements. It's tough, but we'll get it.
Right,
What's up,
families
Brian?
get in the way.
Yeah, right. Life. How's it going, Brian Deneve?
Hey, it's going great. It's going great over here. I just staying with some friends in up in the northern part of Wisconsin, depending on what you say that is. So I'm in a new environment. I'm in my basement. I'm in a different basement. So yeah, we're bringing it representing basements all over Wisconsin.
See, that's weird now because I'm used to you when I first met you being in Illinois. You're like a South Korean, and now you live up north. That's kind of weird. I got to watch what I say to people. I can't say hey, he's a North Korean, but in a way you kind of are right now.
Yeah, that's a very good point. It's a very good point.
Yeah, but no, it's great to have Martin on, and through the years I've gotten people who the Lucky 30. I just, as a matter of fact, right before we filmed today's podcast, this husband and wife that I do a remote distance learning, I guess you'd call it. They were like all into that Lucky 13, right? And I says, well, Martin, the star of it, is going to be on the show. And they're like, which one is he? The nice looking one? I said, no, the other one. So yeah.
Right, that's Martin from 20 years ago, and I've only gotten worse looking.
Oh, what a
That's
Joey!
the
Remember that? Because you look like Joey from Friends. That was your big thing.
Right,
Back-
now I get like Hugh Grant, like the fat old Hugh Grant.
Well, I don't
You're
know. You
onto
don't look
something, Martin, because I've seen Love Actually and a lot of those movies, and I'm like, oh my God, it's Martin. There he is. You could do some stunt work or something that way,
Right.
Leverage that.
Yeah, body double stuff. Yeah, doppelganger. That shit. Yeah, you could do that stuff. I mean, you don't have to be Forrest Gump to do it.
Right. Yeah. Maybe somebody can figure out what my right side is so that I don't look horrible on camera and break the equipment.
Well, tell us. A lot of people, like I say, through the years have wanted to know your story, and I don't really respond to private information on the emails and whatever, but why don't you tell us your story, Martino? I always used to call, everybody got a nickname for me when they were working out. Martin's was one of many, but it was Dino Martino, just because. And so tell us, you made your jaunt originally from Poland, then to Canada, then to Chicago.
Yeah, I mean, I was born in Poland, but most of my like high school and college years I spent in Canada. And then in 2000, I moved to Chicago, and I was like looking for a place to get a good, decent workout with some wrestling, because UFC was coming on. It was kind of a popular thing. And I researched a little bit on the internet, and I figured I'd go visit Tony. And, I had background at that point, like doing martial arts and stuff, but I being 26, I kind of wanted like a workout. That's what was missing from all these martial arts. There was a lot of very fun kind of, ceremony to it, but not a lot of sweat and guts. And that's kind of what I was looking for. And, UFC glorified that a little bit. You could have a lot of hard hitting stuff, and there was a little bit now fame attached to it. So I got sucked into that. But then when I came, I was 26 at the time, so I wasn't in horrible shape, but it was a total eye opener about how far you could push your fitness with your group of guys. Not just the wrestling technique, which I had zero experience in, but even just the fitness aspects of it. It was so different and so much more work to get to a place where you could survive some of the wrestling aspects of it. It just much higher requirements. It was very satisfying to see that progression, like I just was getting fitter and fitter. And in 2001 or two, I ran a marathon with zero preparation, just based on the fitness we had from wrestling.
Yeah, you were like the Energizer Bunny. It was a metamorphosis, really, because you were thin, when you came, and spindly almost, if you want to say it, and you started to bulk up in a way, but sinewy. You became very strong, and with your tendons, and you were like the poster boy of how to do it right. The good attitude. You were the quiet type in a way, but when you spoke, spoke volumes. I guess we could say this, might as well. When you first came in, I'm like, he ain't gonna make it. All right. That. I figured you'd be done one class and you're gone.
Well,
and then
Tony, to speak to that, I mean, why don't you walk us through a little bit of Martin's first class, either one of you guys, and what that was like for what actually transpired then.
Well, let's get it from the horse's mouth. Go ahead, Martin.
Well, my perspective was very limited. I was just getting beat on and hurt. So, at some point I was just not enjoying it very much. But again, I kind of liked the aspect of being able to struggle as much as possible. And, somebody was just beating the crap out of me.
Yeah, you took it well. I mean, your body got accustomed to it because you bruise. And you ended up getting quite bruised. And then you never did again because your body adapts to it. It really does. Yeah, and then through the years, you became adept at not just the fitness, but the wrestling or fighting, however you want to label it. And you were, your big thing was the head scissors. For some reason, you got good at that, and you focused on that. And you were, we've had pro fighters come through the gym that could not submit you. You were tough. And as far as it not getting submitted, a lot of that was just because of your fitness, but also your toughness. And I'm a firm believer that a lot of people tap out from fear. Okay. They think they're in trouble. And, you faced a lot of bad stuff, so to speak, in your training, and you learned that, things aren't as bad as they look. So you wrote it out, and these guys weren't tapping you. But yeah, that was great times, especially when we transitioned over to Triton College, where we filmed. For those that you don't know, that we filmed the Lucky 13 at the Triton College, the Worth the Wait, the Ripping video series over there, the seminar series, and we filmed quite a few things at Triton. But yeah, boy, you were something else. You were really fit.
Yeah, and Tony, to walk people through, so Martin joined us at the original Tool and Die Shop, which was on Mannheim Road, in a very nondescript building, an industrial building, essentially a small space that we trained at. And, but we trained intensely and we made it work. And even within those limitations in space, I mean, you could still get a phenomenal workout and have a strong learning progression even within that. And then I'd only expounded on even, I would say, bigger, going to Triton when you have an indoor track and a weight room and full-size collegiate wrestling mat. I mean, but it just shows to say, there's really no excuse when it comes to this stuff.
And to Tony's point, there was also a lot of like the coaching was kind of focused on being able to push yourself, right? So like Tony was saying, there's a lot of times where you think you're done, and that holds true for both wrestling and just doing some fitness exercises. and it's really hard to get yourself self-motivated to get past that. But with the right kind of coaching, with somebody giving you a little bit of a push and telling you, no, you're not done, you screw you body, you're doing this, you're going to get through this, it's not going to hurt you, it's just going to feel like it will. It pushes you quicker to better results.
Yeah, and it's important that the coach has to understand. You can't just push somebody until they keel over, and that does happen. And even higher, like collegiate uh, issues. Collegiate coaching. There was football players that died from heat stroke and so on. But you got to really be in tune with the knowledge and with your students, because everybody's a little bit different. But yeah, a lot of it is up here. I remember when people used to come through to train with me, they maybe stay for from out of town, 4 or 5 days, whatever. And I pretty much guaranteed everyone, you will do 1,000 squats by the time you leave, just straight, free squats. With the exception of one person, everybody ended up doing 1,000 squats, because it's not like I could make them squat 1,000 pounds. That's an impossibility unless you come to me squatting 990 already. But these reps, these high reps, a lot of it is mental. And as long as you have some fitness, and remember, we were dealing with guys back then that were in their 20s. Most of them were fit, they weren't fit, but they had a base. And I just showed them a few exercises to do to quickly get them up to snuff. But Martin took it at a whole nother level, which was awesome to see.
Yeah, there was a lot of room for doing things, because there was just so many exercises. I mean, there's not enough hours in the day to exercise everything the way you should. So Tony was very good about highlighting some of the things that are probably a little more bang for your buck, given the limited time. Brian worked, I worked. Brian was doing 2 jobs, college. I don't know. I think he worked like a night watchman, so he wasn't even sleeping. And then I always had a very good track from Tony about, if you're going to go to the weight room, maybe you should focus more on benching, because that's there's a limited number of pushing exercises that you can do. So focus on benching, maybe do pull-ups. There was a selection of things that would give you more results, right, Tony?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I didn't put you on a powerlifting routine or anything like that, but what's your goal, right? So if you came to me and said, hey, I want to be a powerlifting champion, well, then I would have trained you differently. But your whole focus was self-defense, and doing, the fighting aspect of it. So yeah, you came along, like I said, very well. I just can't brag enough about you. And through the years, like when Paul Dodds came from England, his big thing was wanting to meet you. You were like his idol. He just was blown away by your fitness, and you made it look so effortless. And it was for you. I mean, here's what people don't know. They see that Lucky 13. Well, we started out at Triton. Our workouts were roughly 3 hours back then, give or take. But we started it off with basically the Lucky 13 or a variant of it. And that was the warm up. That's what was in, that's how fit these guys became, that they would start off with this Lucky 13 and then go on to do all their technical stuff at a high level. That's, to me, very impressive.
Right. There was a track there, and we've actually used it for some sprinting, which is where I discovered that Tony, being 10 years older than me, could lap me on an indoor track.
Well, I used to be a sprinter. Like I said, in 1982, I ran a 10,600 meters when the world record was 9.95. So I had that fast twitch. Now I can still run it in 10.6, but that's 10 minutes and 60 seconds. You had 100 meters.
Tony, since everybody knows, with the combine, the 50, I mean, what did you have a good number on the 50?
Well, the 40 yard.
40, yeah.
Yeah. So remember now, a lot of the combines now are electrical timed. When I ran the 30, I got time running the 30, the 40, and then we ran a 50 in a track meet before I ended up pretty much our track team disbanded. But I ran a 4.340 and I ran a 3.230. And think I ran a 5.4 or 5.5 50 yards. No, that's yards. And then for the 100 meters, for the 100, it was 100 meters. I think Cleveland switched over from yards. I know in 78, it was still 100 yards. So I think in 79 or 80, Cleveland made the switch over to 100 meters. So yeah. And I ran two different styles. Like if I was just going to run the 40, I would do like they used to call me the scooter because I would take shorter steps to help me get out of the blocks because I didn't have good coaching. So I just kind of like self-coached. But when I ran the 100, then I could start to elongate. My best was actually from the flying start. If I had a flying start, like on relays, man, I was like a blaze. So in hindsight, my start from the blocks could have used a lot of improvement. I think I told you guys this. They brought in some guy because, like I said, my coaches had no clue. So they brought in some older guy. He might have been 22 or something, or 23. He wasn't that much older. I was 17, and he was a college track guy, sprinter. So we used the track right across the street, Cuyahoga Community College, and so I kind of had this little attitude about myself, and we raced, and I snuffed him. So like I didn't want to hear what he had to say, which was kind of silly on my part. I kind of wish I would have picked his brain, but I burned him pretty bad, and that was the first and only time I ever saw the guy. I never saw him back there again, which was fine because our track team pretty much disbanded shortly thereafter anyway.
Right. Did you we recently had Olympics and they try to focus these days on like human stories and so forth, but track and field is still the most watched event of the Olympics, all the different races. Do you find that like there is a difference in the technique? Like I've never ran track, so I don't watch stuff, but like when you talked about getting out of blocks and things like that, those are things that maybe you could tweak a little bit. Do you notice any difference when people run track now and then when you used to do it?
Yeah, well, okay, first that's a good question because right away, the performance enhancing stuff and everybody thinks steroids and, yes, there's still a lot of that, but there's other stuff that these guys do, testosterone or insulin and, you name it, HGH. But even taking all of that out of the equation, okay, yeah, the equipment is quite different. All right, your shoes and the synthetic tracks. Back in the day, like when I was really young, and the first track I ever was taken to was a cinder track, and that'll in 100 meters, that'll knock off about 2 to 3 tenths on your time. So just going to a really good synthetic track will knock off 2 or 3 tenths. And now the track, the material is even better. So that has a lot to do with it. But to get to your question, as far as tweaking things, yeah, the start is so important. And Usain Bolt, the world record holder, he was 6'5". He was tall for a sprinter. I mean, very, very tall.
Right.
And he had his only flaw was really the start. And it was just his mechanic. It wasn't his mechanics. It was just, his body structure. You got this big locomotive trying to get it in, it's all about inertia. So he was not the quickest guy, but the middle distance boy, in that 100 meters, when he hit about 50, 60 meters, he was gone. I mean, the guy was just incredible. And then your reflexes too, that's another avenue that you can improve on always to get a quicker start out of that block. They have sensors, okay, and they've determined, and I forgot what the figure is right now, 1/10 of a second or something like that. They figured that's the absolute peak limit of human reaction time. So if legally you would go, let's say 0.08, and you do take off before or after the starting gun, they'll still blow you for a false start because they think you're anticipating the gun. And you just got lucky, let's say. So yeah, it's track continues to improve in certain things. Matter of fact, just 2 days ago, the 100-meter ladies record that Florence Griffin Joyner holds at 10.49 almost fell. I think the new girl ran 10.54. So that's amazing. And that may actually be the fastest time ever by a woman, because there's some controversy with Florence Griffith Joyner's time. Many people in the track world believe that it was wind aided. And that because everywhere around that track when she was running, there was a lot of wind. But during her sprint, the wind gauge showed 0.00. All right, now that's kind of freaky. So there is a chance that record was really not 10.49. I mean, it was 10.49, but wind aided. But it's still the official record. But doggone it, man, this girl over the weekend almost blew past it.
Yeah, the Usain Bolt, to me, like you mentioned, him was just such an amazing presence on track, because he was like dominant for 16 years. And it's almost unheard of that somebody would be, getting lucky for 16 years. There's just something about his frame that really made it possible. To your point, like he was getting faster when you watched him sprint.
He could run the 400 too. I mean, that was the thing when he was in his peak. Personally, I thought, hey, is this guy going to make a crack at the 400 meters too? Naturally, he would have. I don't assume that he would have won the gold in that, but a third or fourth place finish would have been unheard of. But yeah, he was just, he started as a junior, and so he had a junior world record, which I believe was just broken this year. But as far as his world record, man, that's going to stand for a while, I think. I really do. I think it's going to stand for a bit. But who knows? I could be wrong. But these guys are at a whole nother level than when I ran, and the world-class sprinters of my time. Off peak, in my day, if you ran a 10.3, 10.2, 100 meters, you were still considered world-class off season, off peak. Now, I mean, you wouldn't even qualify with that time.
Right. Also, one of the other things that I remember you doing a lot of was, weightlifting, like bench press. And like I remember some of the things that you would do would be like, you would get your bench up to a pretty impressive level. And then these like random records of, holding a hammer this way and that way, or, holding it upside down for X many seconds. They seem very trivial because there's only so many people doing it. And those are not the people that are actually getting basic weightlifting scores up there. So do you think that over the time that you've been benching and doing stuff like that, do you have any like tips and techniques on how to continuously improve it?
Well, and that I got into the sledgehammer lifts and stuff. It was kind of trivial even to me, because I lifted for like more just brute strength. And I remember one guy, and this is not knocking the kettlebells, but he brought over this kettlebell to Triton, and he showed me all the how they do it, and I literally just curled it and just pressed it overhead. It's just too light, and he was impressed by that. He's like, holy cow. Well, that's because I trained in two ways. I trained top and bottom. So I wanted to have a high single rep, but I also wanted to have that muscular endurance at the bottom end, especially when it comes into play for fighting. So, let's say I do a heavy triple in my workout today, but I would finish it with a burn set, as I used to call it, and Kevin and I would call it that, just to flush the muscles, man, with that blood. So we're talking high reps, 25, 35, and sometimes I would have an off day when I just didn't feel like going heavy, and I would just do a lot of reps, 50, 60 reps. So in essence, guys, I benched. I did seated overhead presses, like behind the neck, from about the ears on up, curls, pull-ups, or chin-ups, just to get that push-pull muscle stuff going. Worked my grip, of course. And, those were and we had that neck machine later on at the our last gym. But yeah, I just wanted the core muscles that, that you use in fighting. You don't use flies, that's a bodybuilding thing, nothing wrong with it, but that's not going to help you in a fight.
No curling, no beach muscles.
Yeah, I set that world record in the strict curl. You were there, I think, when I was working out at Triton. Yeah, my curls, the arms are the most important thing,
Right.
because that's what we use the most for grabbing and holding. So once you get a hold of somebody, they're not going to get out, or they're going to have to struggle, and then you release it, and now they're kind of gassed, and you can play with them, and you can tap them out at will. So yeah, curls, bench, overhead presses, just and your core. I couldn't do squats because of my legs, because of my back. So I didn't do that, but I did a lot of ab work at, especially in Stone Park. We
Tony,
had
the triceps, you were always big on push downs, the application toward heavy bench, and even fighting, just hitting the top wrist lock, those micro motions, a few inches, and how that really translates, I recall.
Yeah, those are called assistance work. I did heavy push downs and push downs like this and in reverse, and a lot of weighted dips. Dips really helped me, and I was doing dips with a lot of weight, more than my body weight. Marvin Eder, who was a legendary bodybuilder and strength athlete back in the 40s and 50s, he was the guy who was the king of doing weighted dips. Yeah, you just want to have that kind of raw strength. It helps you with your technique. It really does. People think, oh, big strong guys have no technique, but it's actually the opposite. That's just a way to bash big guys. But when your body is so finely tuned like a horse, like a racehorse, where you have all this power, yet you have all this speed, you're really something. Now, I'm not sitting there saying become, muscle bound and, all you do is heavy lifting. It has to be a balance. But like you said, Brian, the pushing like this, even when you're going into a top wrist locker or whatever move it is, man, when you know that you can do this and not fatigue or just have the strength to move a guy who may outweigh you by 100+ pounds, man, that really helps your confidence.
So I still do some benching, usually pretty standard type of, sets going towards something heavy. I'm going to try to move to doing a little more of like what you were saying, like go high reps, do the flushing stuff. What about like bent over rows, right? Like the thinking is that bent over rows are kind of the reverse of a bench. You kind of do the pulling thing. Do you subscribe to that? Is anything better that you could do?
Well, seated rows too, but yeah, bent over rows, especially with a barbell, is fine. It's an excellent exercise. Again, the only reason I didn't do it is because it hurt my back. It hurt my low back to bend over like that. I could deadlift. Deadlift was no problem. Squats, no. Even like when we would wrestle and repeatedly wrestle, like drilling, when you got that collar and elbow tie up, just the guy's weight pressing down, compressing me, compressing my spine, and man, I'd be in a lot of pain. So you can't like just go by what exactly I did, because I had to work around my injuries. But bent over rows are fantastic. Very good exercise.
Okay, and then for you said pull-ups, which again, excellent stuff. Anything else that people might want to use as an alternative?
Well, lat pull downs, you can use a lat pull down machine if you have access to it, and chin ups. And then again, for the wrestling, for the fighting, the pull ups and chin ups, if you hold them in the lockout position where your arms are fully extended, and then you also hold them when your chin's above the bar for time, that helps your endurance, because unlike a bench press where you can just take off weight until in essence you're benching the bar, which is 45 pounds, you can't really do that on a pull-up or a chin-up. You can't cheat unless you're using some sort of a machine. So you can't do 50 reps of a chin-up if at the end of your workout if you're not capable of doing 200 to begin with or whatever. So yeah, locking it out either way, in a chin up position and a pull up position, and doing it when your chin is above the bar is really important because, let's say somebody's behind you and they're trying to choke you, and you block it. You have your hands up to try to like block your thing, so they can't get the choke on. You're not going to fatigue. He's going to tire trying to get your arms down before you do. So it has a very practical street or competition aspect to it. And you're working your tendons, which will help, in defeating arm bars.
Yeah, that was the thing I remember, Tony, that was, when I first met you, this was in the 90s, right before Martin connected with all of us, is your tendon strength. And, I was a decent jujitsu guy. I mean, I wasn't world class, but putting an arm bar on you, it essentially wouldn't work, even, with the right technique, because you had developed so much through the tendons, through heavy curls and lockouts on the bench, full extensions and the static holds, like you were mentioned, because, the integrity all around the joint with the muscle was just so solid. So I do recall that. Obviously that takes months, years to acquire, but I mean, there's obviously other ancillary benefits just to do those exercises as well, just beyond submission defense.
Yeah, that's the thing that most people just don't do, and they don't get. They're like, oh, people may say, well, I can arm bar anybody. Well, not really, no. But I was trained as a young kid to specifically work my tendons without weight equipment, okay, because I didn't have access to that. To make yourself, basically submission, impervious to most submissions and chokes as well. And, we did special exercises, as you remember, to develop your choke resistance. And, Brian, you were up to a point where you could go 45 seconds to a minute and not get choked out. I mean, after that, you'd go out. But, these are things that can be developed. Just because they don't see it on YouTube or see it in the UFC or something like that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Come to train with me. You'll learn all this stuff, guys and gals.
The other thing that, I keep asking with this slant, because we're all getting older and there's things that you can and can't do. And I've done like a bunch of CrossFit classes before COVID, because now it's, the gyms are kind of still screwed up. And one of the things they would do for scaling a pull-up is they would, wrap this like rubber band on a pull-up bar, and then people would put their foot in it. And I found it kind of ridiculous because you could game it and have it basically slingshot you up. But the other thing that they would do, which I was really a little more in tune is, was they would say, well, if you can't do a pull-up, screw the pull-up, do push-up variations, because you can kind of build up some of the same muscles that way. Do you have any like push-up variations that are probably a little more bang for your buck again?
Well, I don't agree with the push-up, pull-up thing, but remember, we were going to do that push-up book. This was at Triton, and we took a bunch of pictures. I don't know whatever happened to it, but I think I came up with like, I don't know, there was like 30 or 40 different variations. It's hard for me. I can't really describe any of it here. And most of the people who are listening to this probably not watching it on YouTube, but much of it is your hands and your arm positioning, okay, and how you position that. So push-ups can be very good, but you have to watch that you don't injure your shoulders and you don't injure your back. If you're heavy set, way overweight, you got to be really careful. I knew a guy when I was I think I met him when I was like 20 or 21. He was not an athlete. He was a musician, as a matter of fact. And he was at least my mom's age, right around there. So if he's still alive, I've lost touch. He'd be in his 80s. But when he was a young kid, he was overweight, and he did push-ups, and he blew his back out. And it never recovered, never. And the last I heard of him was maybe 20 years ago, and he still had back problems. And that would have put him at about 60 years of age. So he had about 40, 45 years of, back pain issues. Now, for the pull-ups or the chin-ups, either one, what I would suggest people do is negatives. So like you get on a chair or whatever it is, so your chin's above the bar already, right? again, it doesn't matter if it's a chin up or a pull up. And then you just lower yourself. Okay. You slowly lower yourself. That's a negative rep. Then get back on the chair, make sure you're above the bar and lower yourself again. And do sets of this. Okay. Just like you would anything else. Maybe 10 reps or 3 sets or 4 sets of 10 reps. And then little by little, start increasing the reps, or get a weighted belt and just add a little bit of weight, 5 pounds, 10 pounds, whatever, just to do the negative. And all of a sudden, you're going to see yourself being able to do the positive reps too, because that's another thing. Kevin and I used to do the weighted chins, and pull-ups. We would do full length, full range of motion with added weight, because just doing the reps got monotonous. We could do quite a lot. Today, there's a phenomenon going on where all these people are doing these crazy, ridiculous amounts of chin-ups or pull-ups. And they're doing a lot of impetus. They're kicking, they're like frog kicking. It's like you said, gaming the system. Some of these people are gaming the system there. You don't want to do that. You want to use good form, for sure. You just do.
Yeah, that's a CrossFit thing. They do different ways to do using their momentum to swing into pull-ups, and they'll do like 100.
Yeah,
whatever.
It's
not right.
I'm not a fan of that. No, I'm not knocking CrossFit. If that's your thing, go for it. But yeah, no, I'm not. I'm not into that. It doesn't pertain to my lifestyle. So I just want to do things that are really, really, really going to produce, pure strength. Now with the push-ups, ultimately you want to be able to do handstand push-ups, okay, where you're using your body weight. And that's another thing that you can gradually progress to. Okay, so you do the floor push-ups, okay? Then you put your feet not on the floor, you put them, let's say, on a chair, okay? So now you're like maybe your feet are here and your head is lower, and you do your push-ups that way. And then get a ladder and start putting your feet higher and higher up on that ladder, okay, until you're pretty much almost on the top rung. And if you don't have the balance to stand on your hands, get somebody to hold your ankles, or do like a backflip. I showed this on the routine video series, or the videotape, or DVD now, or digital download. However, time marches on. So that's the ultimate, is to be able to do handstand push-ups, because you're now using your whole body weight. When I did that 60-second push-up record, I had a routine that I used, and I actually used the bench press to really help me with that development. And I used to send that out to people. I think I probably still have it somewhere. If you want a copy, if I can find it, I'll email it over to you, Martin. But that'll really help with your explosiveness.
Yeah, I think this stuff with CrossFit is focused on kind of gymnastic movements, because they'll do keeping pull-ups, and they'll do like keeping handstand push-ups. But they've done, like, I took a couple classes there, and I was old at the time, so I couldn't really do a lot of the movements that they were trying to teach. One of the other things they did is they would do you start off with your feet on the wall, and you walk your hands back up towards the wall, trying to touch your nose to the wall. And I found that to be very strenuous. Like, it would really tire me out just doing like a couple of those, even though it was kind of slow paced and there wasn't any kipping or momentum involved. It was a tiring movement.
Good.
I thought that one was a good one.
Yeah, sounds good.
Did you ever see, like, from your days training with Radvan, what did he do? Like, what kind of exercises did he do as part of his workouts? Minus all the strongman stuff where he would perform. Like, what was the more routine stuff that he did?
Yeah, he would do a lot of the body weight exercises, squats, deep breathing exercises. A lot of different push-ups. He would do pull-ups, or in his case, well, pull-ups and chin-ups, but he would do it. He didn't have a bar, so he had, how you have woodwork over your doorway back in the older houses. He would just get his fingertips up on there and just do the chin-ups or pull-ups that way, with 4 fingers, and then 3 fingers, and then 2 fingers, and then 1 finger. You talk about, that's incredible. and remember, this guy was, let's call him in his 70s at the time, and I saw him doing all of this, and he did a lot of thick. He would grab things that were thick, but that was strictly to keep his grip going. So, for example, I tell people that I saw that it was a big fad. I don't know if it still is, but to like do everything with a thick handle barbell, right? Do curls, do your bench, do deadlifts, whatever. And I would do it, but not. I wouldn't bench really with a thick handle. I would like grab a dumbbell. We made a dumbbell with a huge thick ass handle on it, but that's strictly for your grip because you're not like, okay. So for example, I guess I'll use an example here. I'll make something up, numbers. So let's say that you can curl a 100-pound dumbbell. Okay. Let's say you can do 5 reps. Well, now because you're using that thick handle, well, you're not going to do that 100 pounds because your grip won't hold it. You might only do 40 pounds, right? So you're uselessly tiring your biceps, right? Because you're curling 40 pounds, which, if you're a 100-pound curler, curling 40 is probably not going to be in your, in your rep scheme. So I think people have to understand that I think you should work your grip completely separate from, the other major muscle groups, and be careful with your grip. Don't overtrain it by doing so many variations. And work your fingers. That's another thing. Rodman did special finger exercises because there's a world of difference between a handshake grip and bending coins like he could do. That's coming down to your fingers, your finger strength, which I'm out of the loop. I don't go on the internet for this stuff, but I don't know how many people are training their fingers. But I discussed all that stuff with you guys in the past. I showed you the gloves, special finger lifting gloves and everything, and that we made. And that's all important stuff.
I remember one of the really boring exercises that I saw you do was you would take a chain with a weight and then you would roll it up. And it would take a long time, but based on the length of the chain and the weight attached to it, it would be really tiring. I mean, I've tried it a few times, but you just sit there and you roll it up and it increases your grip strength.
Yeah, your forearms. Yeah, that's a wrist roller. Yeah, those forearms will get a burn. Yeah, that works. Crumbling up newspaper, squeezing a ball is okay, but that gets to be redundant. Those captains of crush grippers are great. We all had them. They're not. How can I say it? I recommend them first and foremost, but remember, your hand size makes a big difference. Okay, I know guys who truly have a world-class grip, but they're not very good at the captains of crush because it doesn't fit in their hand right. Okay. Whereas if you're bench pressing, you can make some adjustments. Okay. If your arms are longer, you can go a little bit wider or narrower, whatever the case may be, depending on your body structure. The captains of crush or any kind of hand gripper, you're kind of screwed there.
So as we're talking, I can't help but think about, because, I'll follow different things on YouTube and different trends. And you've got things like Wim Hof breathing now, which is a big thing, which is a, specialized progression of breathing by a Scandinavian gentleman that kind of paved that. Calisthenics athletes, there's competitions doing incredible things. Obviously CrossFit, which is a major combination of compound lifting and calisthenics or plyometrics. And I mean, Tony, as we're talking, this is stuff we were doing at least some variation of 20 years ago. You know what I mean? And that's not to say that you thought it was like you were the first to ever do it, but I mean, is anything new under the sun is what I say,
Yeah, I think it's just marketing, man, packaging it right. Yeah, we don't know anything about that. I'm not a marketing guy. I wish I was. I would have been a multimillionaire by now. But yeah, you're right. You just have to be careful with some of this because you don't want to hurt yourself, and you want to make continual progress. And like Martin brought up, and this is a very important thing, when you're using momentum, how can I articulate this properly? Are you really improving your fitness or your strength or what have you? Or are you just better able now to manipulate your momentum. Okay. And so if you're a little tired today, you may not have that momentum kick. But maybe if you're energized, oh man, now you're doing all this momentum shit. And you're really not improving your fitness. You're just, getting better at using the trick. So you don't have that ability when you're doing raw strength stuff, okay? Like a powerlifting or curls, or even curls, you can really arch your back and and cheat, right? Not when you're doing the strict curl, when you have to get your back up against the wall. It's pure muscle, baby. So that's another thing to monitor. Are you finding ways? I like Martin's word, gaming. Are you finding better ways to game the system?
We also, when we were wrestling a lot, you said that basically instead of doing any other cardiovascular exercise, we should just wrestle. And that was absolutely the right advice because that's what we're trying to get better at. But now as we get older and so forth, and wrestling as a way of getting your cardio exercise is not necessarily available. What other things would you say are worth doing? I remember you had like a mini tram. That was kind of like your thing that I saw you do. But we also did. I used to run a lot. Running is kind of destructive, though. I don't really. I wouldn't advise it to anybody else. Like I got all kinds of like small problems, but when I go to the doctor, they're like, "No, you didn't get injured. Nothing happened to you. It's just wear and tear." Something that you would suggest that minimizes the wear and tear, but
Yeah.
provides cardio.
Well, see, I had shin splints from track, and as you guys know, when we were practicing shin locks or anything, man, all you guys had to do was just grab me with the thumb, and I'm in incredible pain, and that was 20 some years after I had quit running track, and it'll never go away. So that's why I use the trampoline for me, the mini tramp, because there's no impact for me, so yeah, the running can be you have to have two things. If you're going to run, you want to have the absolute best shoes that you can afford. And if you don't have the money for the shoes, don't run. Borrow the money or get a second job just to get those $200 or $300 shoes, and then run on a good surface. Like recently when I started to go to the gym, I was doing treadmill, just walking on the treadmill. And you know what? Just walking on that damn treadmill, my back started to hurt. Not the first day, not the first week, but by the second week, I felt it. So I'm like done with that because the treadmill is that's hard plastic, man. There's no give. So when I used to walk, I used to like to walk on people's grass. I hate to say it, but just something where there's some cushion. So the impact is right, Martin. The running itself isn't what injures you. It's that doggone impact. And all the plyometrics that all of us did, the jumping, we had a cushioned surface. Even at the last place I had in Bensonville, that floor would give because it was a wooden floor. It wasn't solid concrete. It was wood. And we were on a second floor, and there, you have the girders underneath. So that floor would give. And on top of it, we had those wrestling mats. So I felt no impact there. But yeah, it was that trampoline for me was out of necessity because even when I went to a health club and ran on their track, I felt it in my back. So what was the rest of your question? I know that one.
Maybe alternatives, like I find that like doing burpees on a good cushioned surface is a lot less impactful to my joints, but I get a good cardio workout out of it.
Burpees are great. Cycling, as long as you're using good form with your cycling, that's really good. And if you're going to cycle, just don't monotonously do it. Do your intervals, because you know me, I was always big on the interval training. Sprint, and then let's call it sprint jog on the bicycle. Sprint, 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 jog, jog, jog. If you can work up to 30 seconds, 45 seconds, 1 minute of a top burst, man, great. So yeah, cycling is a really good alternative. Jumping rope or jumping jacks. Again, if you have that cushioned surface, it's all about that surface. I recommend getting these trampolines. They're great. They're not expensive, those mini tramps, and you can do all this. I used to run in place. I would bring my knees up like as high as I could. I wouldn't bounce. I wouldn't use a trampoline to bounce. I would use it to lessen the impact of coming down on your footwork there. So I would bring my knees up as high as I could. And boy, you talk about getting a workout, and then of course moving your arms too. Bring them way past your ears, like you're saluting. Like you wish you were Italian and had good hair like me, and you're sliding your arm across the side of your head. Okay, that's the kind of movement you want. And I had a lot of practice with that because I always had thick hair. You should know that, Martin.
That's right. You're still completely dark, and I thought it'd be fake, but I noticed that Bruce is completely dark too. So it must be just me. I'm just falling apart.
No, you look good. You look like Joe Cardinal now with that hair. Matter of fact, I got to get a haircut this coming week. But as you get older, and everybody's body is different, and I'm glad we brought this up. One of the things about Kevin and why I thought he was the greatest is he was an unknown. Nobody knew him. We worked out. He won the Missouri and Illinois State Bench Press Championships when he was like 50, 51. But when he was 70, I saw him the day before he got killed. We were together at the gym, and he was the exact same physique. Now, granted, he wasn't a Mr. Universe, but he had big, solid arms. There was not an ounce of flab on this guy. And he looked the same as he did when he was 50 and he was 70. You look at some guys that were phenomenal bodybuilders, let's say in their prime, and when they get older, they lose all this size. They get real scrawny, and it almost looks like they never worked out. But Kevin wasn't like that, and I want to be just like that too. I want to always have my size, and I think the benefit is because I wasn't a bodybuilder or a champion powerlifter like that, and put on all this, let's say, fake weight. Like bulking up. I never got gigantic. I had 18. I think the biggest my arms were like about 19 inches when I did the worth the weight. That's when I set the strict curl world record. So that was about the biggest, 18 3/4 or something, or 19. I mean, that's to me not gigantic. So I think I'm about 18 1/4 now. I mean, I could probably bulk up and get it to 18 1/2, but I'm like 10 pounds lighter. So I want to keep my fitness, I don't want to set world records or lift, crazy weight, but I want to be, in the ballpark. And Kevin inspired me because, he was roughly 20 years older than me, 18 years older. And man, the guy was just, even if he would not lift for a while, like 6-8 months because of just his job, he'd lose some strength, but he'd gain it back in a few months, man. It's just, so I said, yeah. If he could do it, I can do it, So, yeah, you and I, all of us, we were always totally natural. We never took any side stuff. We took some supplements. I took protein, a lot of protein powder. For a while, I took, when it came out, creatine, probably around 98, 99. And then I got off of it. And literally, I didn't notice any difference. So I never took it again. And I just sometimes take a vitamin. I should be back on my vitamins. I haven't been taking that. It's a multivitamin. But I want us to be natural. What happens if you're all drugged up, and now you're dependent on that stuff. And life gets in the way, or finances change, or just whatever. Now you shrivel up, you lose all your size and strength, or most of it. Man, I don't want to be like that.
Yeah, I remember you. Yeah, go ahead, Tony.
No, I'm done. Go ahead.
Yeah, I remember you turned down some people from participating in our gym because they were known to be taking a lot of supplements, and some of them were of questionable legality. Yeah. But you were always saying that, like, I don't know what these guys are going to do. They're not in control of their own bodies. Like, they're just jacked up, and you didn't want, for safety purposes, you didn't want those kinds of people in our gym.
Right, because you're at risk. You are as the training partner. Okay, I don't want a person who's willing to risk their own life and risk their own health to get bigger or stronger or whatever. if they don't care enough about their own health and welfare, I sure as hell don't think they're going to care about you. That's my take. Now, I could be wrong, but I'm always about safety. And I loved you guys. And I want you guys to be as good as you can be for as long as you can be. And now remember, I was around a guy, Rod Von, who was in his 70s, 69 when I started with him, who was still doing feats of strength. And there was no drugs involved with him. And then Kevin, he was nowhere near as strong as Rod Von, but he had no drugs in his system and shit. We're all natural. I'm harping here on preaching, but for those of you who want to do it, go ahead. I know that if I did TRT, testosterone replacement therapy, I'm sure it would help me. It would probably give me a lot of energy and all of this, but I don't want to do it. I heard you become dependent on it. Kevin's cousin through marriage, I don't think you guys ever met him, Bill. He used to play college football. I think he may have played 1 year in a USFL or Canadian Football League or something. I'm not sure. But he was like, what was I going to say about him, Bill?
Did he take TRT?
No, but he was like, he was another one who was anti-steroids and all of that kind of stuff. But, oh, no, I know what it was. I know what he was. This is back when I was benching really big. He told me, and it's all theoretical, but he's like, man, if you would do a few cycles of the shit, he said, you'd probably be benching close to 600 pounds. Now, that blew my mind because I trusted what he would say. And I'm thinking, 600? And he probably was right, or I would have gotten close because I benched 480. So we're talking about putting on roughly 100 pounds. Yeah. No way, man. That's not me now. That's Tony no longer exists. It's some freak. All right. I can't bench 600. That's just ridiculous. Yeah. With the drugs and stuff, the drugs are doing it. So I couldn't live like that, man. It's like, it's all bullshit to me, but everybody's different. Some people don't care. They just want to say they did it. I just wasn't one of those people.
Speaking of world records, I forgot about the strict curl record, but I do remember that you had the world record for Pac-Man for some brief period of time. And when that movie King of Kong came out, I spent like a lot of time on the internet trying to find your name, and I did find it, and I wish I had saved it because it's like internet is moving all the time. Things get scrubbed out, dropped, deleted, but I did find a place that had your name in it, like as they had a chronology of these record holders.
Wow. Yeah. 2,729,280, but who cares? Yeah. Billy Mitchell, who I guess they ended up taking his records because he kind of gamed the system in a way.
That's right.
He got like a perfect Pac-Man, but you got to understand, and there was other guys that did it. So my record legitimately was broken, but I was just a kid. I was like, I think I started Pac-Man when I was like 16, and I had to find the time between training and everything else and, doing some side jobs just so I can get the quarters, to put them in at the Mr. Heroes so I could practice and shit. That took a lot of money. I wish I knew how much I spent on that, but a lot back then. But
Tony, there's multimillionaire kids now from esports. So if you ever want to change careers and you got some aptitude, it sounds like maybe that's something you could do.
Hey, do you guys remember, like, I know Martin was at the house. We had a UFC at my old apartment, and I built that controller, the joystick controller and shit. And I got that MAME emulator, which is the exact thing. It's exact arcade games. And I practiced for a while, and I was able to get up over 1 million. And I'm sure I got 1 million in front of you guys at my house, at my apartment then. But yeah, no, those days have gone past me, buddy. My memory isn't so good anymore, but I just don't have the patience to do it.
That whole MAME thing, like, basically corrupted the record setting business because people have been able to alter MAME to the point of making the record breaking easier. So now there's records that are set on the actual machine versus on MAME. They're not interchangeable.
Well,
gaming the system.
Gaming the system. What Billy Mitchell did, at least one of the things, I don't know if he's an outright cheat, but I read in an interview that he said that he had access to a Pac-Man machine. This is back in the 80s. and he had the I don't know if it was the guy, the arcade guy or whatever, but if I remember correctly, there was a way that he could switch it or just started it at the ninth key. Okay, which for those of you who don't know Pac-Man, that was the mystery. How do you get past that ninth key? And so he just completely had a, he just could forego all that other shit and start right at the ninth key over and over. And he didn't have to pay for this, right? And he was just practice, practice, practice. So it's kind of like an unfair advantage. So like when you're in a game room setting with a lot of other people or wherever you're at, and you start from the very beginning, anything can happen. Anything can distract you, or the joystick. A lot of times that was the main thing. You'd have a malfunction with the joystick. You didn't blow it, the joystick did. But yeah, I guess there's yeah, you're right. I heard that there's a lot of fraudulence that went down, and there's some other games too where the records have come into question.
Yeah, it's very subtle. They inject more time between the frames so that you have your reaction time versus how quickly things actually happen is a better ratio now, which is all bullshit.
Yeah, see, I don't follow any of that. I mean, I don't even shoot pool as much as I should, but yeah, those were the days, and that was fun. I mean, I could walk into a arcade, and get my high score up there, and people would think, what the hell, what's this? The guy's turning the machine over and shit. But yeah, it was pretty cool back then. When you're a kid, that was like,
that was clout before the internet. That was your clout.
Yeah, they're right. I mean, we're talking 1981 and 1982. I won that Pac-Man championship in 82. I was a senior in high school, so yeah, 82. And I was nervous as hell because I think I was actually the only kid that made it to the finals, or it made it to this level, and it was like more adults. And how that went was you had a time limit. I don't remember now if you were allowed there was a time limit, and it was a very short time limit, like 3 or 4 minutes, and how many points you could get in the shortest amount of time, and this and that, something like that. And then you progressed. Okay, that would get you out of the qualifying rounds, because otherwise it could take all day and all night. So then finally I went head to head with this guy, and I beat him. This was at a Chuck E. Cheese. So I won like a bike, I won a jacket, a ski coat, all these tokens. So then after that, since I won the Pac-Man tournament, then I was able to just play a Pac-Man game on my own and go for whatever. And that's when I cracked 2 million. It took me a while, like I don't remember how long, 2.5 hours maybe or something. It was a while. Yeah, 2.7 million. That was pretty awesome. I thought that was pretty cool. And then guess what? 2 weeks later, I go to see my friend who lived in Maple Heights, Ohio, suburb of Cleveland, and they had a game room there. They had a Chuck E. Cheese, and they wouldn't let me in. I'm like, I'm the Pac-Man world champion.
It's because you knew how to count cards, Tony. They wouldn't let you.
I wasn't freaking for that. No, I was like, you had to be 18 or have a parent with you. Okay, and I was 17. It was like a technicality. I mean, like, this is like April or something, right? I'm like, I'm going to be 18 in June. I'm the world record holder. Let me in. I got look at this bag of tokens I got. They wouldn't let me in. But I got pretty good.
Tony, so there's obviously, adults now, middle-aged people that are into gaming, or what was like the oldest you think are, when you say you were a kid, but there were adults, what are we talking? Guys in their 20s? Were guys in their 30s even big in the arcades back then, or what?
Okay, so in my tournament, there was the guy that I went up against was in his 30s, but there was a guy named Ken Houston who was a gambler, card player, and he actually he wrote a book on Pac-Man, and he was on the Merv Griffin show for those people who remember that, and he demonstrated Pac-Man. Now I don't remember what his high score was, but it wasn't much. I mean, it was like 270, 280 or something like that, 280,000, which, that's still respectable. But he was in his 40s. Okay. I'm assuming because I remember a gray beard and all of that shit. But yeah, so you had these, I would think there was a lot more older people back then than we're even aware of because of gambling. All right. This is just another avenue for them to fleece the kids because believe me, in the world of pool, they didn't care if you were 16, 17, 18 years old. You can walk into a pool hall, your ass is grass. They're going to try to take you for every little penny you have. So I never got hustled in a game room because, I was like, I learned at Mr. Heroes. So it was just me and Man Beck that owned Mr. Heroes, who was a Korean and who was a 7th degree or 8th degree black belt. And they did a system called Keto, Ki-Do, which is basically Taekwondo, Hapkido, I'm assuming. And him and his brother Moonbeck owned Ohio Black Belt Academy. So I didn't get hassled. But by the time I would go to game rooms and shit, I was the best in there. So nobody was going to try to hustle me. But I'm assuming that, gamblers said, hey, this is a chance for us to practice at this shit, get good at it, and fleece these people. So yeah, there was probably a lot of old timers. I remember I went to see my dad, which I never saw my dad, really. I never saw my dad until I was 17 years old. But after that visit, I went down to see him in Pennsylvania, and we went to this bar, and the owner of the bar was a Pac-Man aficionado. And he was my dad's age, so in his 40s at the time, and he had a cocktail table model, where you sit down, and so we played, and he wasn't there. He couldn't keep up with me. So then he's like, well, I want you to play without the patterns. I'm like, all right, fair enough. So we play without the patterns, and there's tricks to Pac-Man. You can hide him, and the ghosts can't eat him, right? So I did that just to show off. And I put him in there, and I'm like, I got to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. I didn't have to go to the bathroom, but I was kind of showing off, and I left it there and, went to the bathroom and then talked to a few people, and I came back, and he's like, all right, I'm done with you, kid. So yeah, I had fun with Pac-Man, but I'd rather shoot pool.
Yeah. Now you don't have to gamble on Pac-Man. You can gamble on the stock market. So that's all done.
I don't know. Well, I don't know anything about the stock market. And I do know one thing. I was a lot better at Pac-Man than I was at pool. I mean, there was guys that played pool, that are just, phenomenal. I was a good player. Don't get me wrong. But, I mean, there's other guys that just was, they lived at the pool, on the pool table. That's all they did. And I wanted to I had more ovens, more things going on in my life, with the fighting and everything else, learning all this stuff and everything. Pac-Man was just a little blow off, it was just a little way to vent steam. So, and I guess I just took to it. Somebody taught me how in the beginning, which we're going to save that for another podcast, because I want to talk about this one man in particular and how he changed my life in a social way. But he's the one who turned me on to Pac-Man, and that was that, man.
Yeah, we'll definitely cover that some other time, Tony. That sounds interesting. I mean, Martin, is there anything other questions? We'll probably start wrapping it up soon. So
yeah, no, let's start it up, wrap it up. But I'm happy to come by again because I love these chats.
I'd love to see you again, man. It's great. I mean, I'd really like to talk more about you and all your exploits that we can talk about. The gym exploits. Let's put it that way. But we had a lot of fun times too.
Yeah, the sad thing about growing old is that some of the simple things, like it didn't cost any money, it didn't require a huge level of effort. There's just not enough time for it anymore. Like everybody's busy doing a lot of things that just need to be done, and there's not enough time for just random socialization.
Yeah, I wish we could get back to that, especially now with my situation is much more tenuous than it's ever been, and the stress I'm under. So to blow off and just hang out is great, but it's like to do it once, I want to do it, but doing it once isn't going to be enough for me. I need to get back into that kind of a lifestyle. I miss you guys is basically what it is. But no, we will wrap it up. And I want to thank you, Martin, really. And I want to see you in person soon. And I want to see you back on the podcast as well. And Brian, thanks again for substituting. And, we may have you back next week. I don't know what's up with Nico's schedule is really tough during the summer. It opens up in the winter, but
for sure, we'll be welcoming back Joe Cardinal, and maybe we'll have some stories and see how nice his hair has grown in 3 weeks. I don't know.
Yeah, right. All right, guys, and everybody, thanks everybody for listening. If you like the podcast, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, right? Think about joining the membership site, which is like $10 a month. And think about the Tri-C program where you too can end up as fit as Martin Witkowski. You may not be as good looking as him. That's beyond my grasp, but I can do my best. And we can maybe have Martin give some tips. Correct, Martin?
Sure.
All right, guys. Thanks a million.
Thanks, everyone.